Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Well, it's Wednesday, right? We got an ISM services report today. And micro treasury yield futures in the 10-year are sitting at 4.08. So that's interesting. Let's come and take a look at the bigger charts, shall we? So here you got the treasuries. Well, they were selling pretty hard yesterday on account of oil just skyrocketing. But eventually the administration figured out that that was a problem and put together a deal package, I don't know what you want to call it, whereby the United States government will offer wartime insurance to tankers crossing the Strait of Hormuz, and they will provide naval escorts if necessary. Although it does appear to be not necessary because the Iranian Navy is pretty much completely destroyed. If there is any risk to shipping, it is in the form of aerial drones. So, treasuries recovered a little bit, but, you know, it's kind of like, would like to be back up here. I'd like to be back up here. I'd like to see that 4% level. Well, we are kind of moving up here at the moment. I should hurry it up. Here's the equities. They're trying to make a recovery here. They're trying. Here's oil. So you can see overnight. So this is when, you know, the administration was able to come in and kind of stop the price of oil rising. But here it's going up a little bit overnight again. There was an attack on a Saudi Arabia oil refinery, but there was no damage done. May be part of that. So it is basically all about oil right now. Gold, silver, okay, making a recovery off of after getting just destroyed. Kava, the yen, maybe starting to see a shift in the yen and in the dollar. There's a lot of safe haven flows coming into the dollar right now, but maybe it's subsiding. And the Bitcoin. Well, Bitcoin up above 70K, so that's good for them, I'd say. So I think the thing right now is that the market is kind of starting to come down onto, well, maybe this isn't as disruptive as our worst fears. But I don't think the Iranian regime is just rolling over. It sounds like that they, after the funeral, that they have his son picked out as the new leader, even though we think that the son is dead. I don't know what's going on. Nobody knows what's going on. We are in the thick fog of war. And yeah, you let that happen, the markets just kind of start to get away from you. And that's where I think that the Trump administration yesterday kind of realized that was happening and came in pretty forcefully over the Strait of Hormuz issue. So where we could go from here gets curious. We sure are kind of, I mean, look at the micros. That's interesting. So I really don't like that the spread in the micros is so big, but we are getting We are getting some sort of a trend here. What's also what's with the liquidity in the main 10-year? Okay, well, it's coming in a little bit. I was thinking, yeah, let's put out a little feeler, see if the robots react. But at the moment, they really aren't. They seem to only be reacting to the changes up here. That's curious. Let's come in here. Change our levels. Well, that's not right. Where is E plus 2? Because over here it says E plus 2 is at 113 even. So it should be right there. Oh, that number, I'm reading that wrong. That 113 even is the open. Oh, yeah, I don't think that I do it until, I think that I only have the thing that does the export into the levels after the open. I guess we could change that. I think that I did that, like, thinking, oh, we'll put it over here, too. But then never did. Okay. Well, so I see a news story from when I woke up. This morning has been very active on the maritime security front. The latest incident involves a container ship that was struck by a projectile while transiting the Strait of Hormuz. United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations reports that a container ship about 2 nautical miles off Oman, transiting eastbound through the critical and narrow waterway, was hit by an unknown projectile just above the waterline, causing a fire in the engine room. The crew have now abandoned the vessel and all crew are accounted for with no reported injuries, the Maritime Security Center wrote on an update on X. I did not know that that was a thing. Maritime Security Center X. SimSec. Well, we'll follow them. We will add them to the list of news squawks. So for that, most of what they're doing is just tweeting stories, not... Oh, okay. Anyways. Maybe I shouldn't add them to the list yet. UK MTO's alert did not identify the container ship by name, but there are currently 3 transiting the paralyzed waterway. We suspect that the vessel hit was Safine Prestige, although there is no official confirmation. Latest maritime incidents we are tracking. UBS analyst Christian Nadelsu provided clients with a clear picture of the logistical nightmare unfolding due to disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz. Rising uncertainty, however, a potential prolonged disruption could push rates up. We note that since the end of November, EU logistics and shipping sector share prices were up on average of 18%, outperforming stocks by 5%. We believe this mainly reflects expectations for an improvement in the European and U.S. economies in the second half of 2026. In the context of the escalation in the Middle East, a potential prolonged and significant increase in oil prices could represent a headwind to demand, raising question marks around global freight growth volume going forward. Nevertheless, we believe a potential prolonged disruption could also bring upward pressure on ocean and air freight rates on some routes. We believe a scenario of continuous disruption in the Strait of Hormuz and Middle Eastern airspace would bring upwards pressure to ocean and air freight rates touching the Middle East and Asia-Europe, with potential for temporary incremental profits for ocean carriers, dedicated freight operators, and increased complexity that could lead to some benefits for freight forwarders operating on these routes. That's really long. But at the moment, we're seeing some pretty persistent upward pressure on the treasuries. So I was toying around with the idea of it at 07.5, where I think we would already be up +5 now. Should have done it, huh? Should have done it, but then I got distracted by, oh, no, that gray line is the open, not the first line. The first line is 02.5. That means we still got some room to go, huh? Although from a volume perspective, we've already gotten about 10K here. I'm really seeing it in the short end. A Fed's Moran saying that the Fed should support transition to AI jobs with monetary policy. That's what I like to hear. This has been my whole complaint. We're facing possibly the most deflationary force in human history, and everybody is concerned about inflation. I ran out of good tissues. I have tissues, but they're only the soft kind, and for some reason the soft kind make my eyes itch more. Okay, so maybe it's subsiding here a little bit. What about the spoos? Well, we can reset our levels over here. Think. No, maybe not. Let's change it. Oh, they don't know when Warsh will become the chair? I thought that the next Fed meeting was Powell's last meeting. I forget. We gave you a version that you can kind of modify yourself, right? You had the custom one, right? Yeah. That looks good. And this. So we would like to see something at 56 or so. Yes. Okay, cool. So that was an easy fix. I think that what I can do is, well, I don't know. You're going to change things in your custom one. What's your prediction on Iran? Yeah. You know, I think that's a funny question at this point because I'm not even sure what we're predicting at the moment. Like, in terms of, like, what is the prediction we can make in regards to the war with Iran that's relevant to the markets right now? I kind of think that part of the reason why the markets are behaving the way that they are is because we're not sure. Like, nobody's sure what's going on. I guess the bet that we should be making is how many vessels suffered damage, how many shipping vessels suffered damage as a result of the Iran war. Let's just call it the Iran war. So, and the report that we're getting, although the market's not like totally freaking out about it, but the report that I'm getting is that the number is 1. No. The number is 3 because supposedly 2 other ones got attacked. But I never heard anything more about that one. This is another thing that I think is really, really weird about, well, the news in general lately, but particularly as it pertains to Iran, is you'll get a report and then you never hear anything about it again. Like, normally it's like you get a report and then you will find something later that goes, oh, actually that report was false or whatever the deal was, right? But you never even get that. It's just like everybody forgets about it. So I assume that one that like 2 tankers were attacked by Iran on Monday, that report must be false because I haven't seen any confirmations about it. But it's kind of weird to me that I haven't seen anything about that. You know? Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give you the export levels. Yeah, because you have to make a change. You have to make a change. Where is it? Where are you? There you are. So that's your new export levels. And then you just have to make sure that up in the on-bar update that you, at the start of the extended session that you call the export levels method. Okay, cool. So we fixed it. Gave Uzi the thing. That was a pretty easy fix. I'm glad because almost everything else with that indicator has been a real pain to deal with. Okay, I thought that the dollar will fall down after the war started, and it went up against the euro. Okay. So why did you think, what was like the reasoning in your mind as to why the dollar would fall? Which parts did you fix? Oh, you're outside. Don't worry about it then. I fixed it so that it will do the export at the beginning of the extended session and at the beginning of the regular session. So that when I come in here and I load levels in ES, I can at least see the extended session levels. So you know, we can talk about why the dollar falls, but I also want to address the like what was the misconception that you had that made you think that it was going to fall. Yeah, so you can just take that block and just copy it over your spot in the code. Yep. Basically, all that we did is the lines that write out the regular session, you have to check to make sure that there's actually data in them first before you do it. Uh-oh. My machine is running out of space. It's that time again, huh? You know, it's funny. I save all of the videos, but like I never use it. But there must be some other stuff filling things up because I mean, that's only 150 gigabytes. Where's the rest of the space going? Ooh, they coming back fast. I think if I had gotten in on that, I think I would be puking there. And hopefully I would have gotten $5 out of it, but oh gosh. I did not like that. It's just like the flows shifted so quickly. You can see it. And come over here. Hold on, my annotation software died on me. There we go. You see right there, where like all of a sudden it's just completely like there was a big down bar and then followed by a couple of other down bars. So we were getting a good trend, and it just immediately flipped on us. Iran to target Israeli embassies worldwide if Israel attacks the Iranian embassy in Beirut, Iranian armed forces spokesman cited by Iranian media. Well, why would you do that? So here's the thing that I don't get is like the CIA, they basically operate out of embassies in other countries. So when you let a country have an embassy there, are you basically agreeing to them spying on you or something? Like, I don't, you know, like when you have like China, like the US has an embassy in China, right? And they're going to be running spying operations out of that embassy. So why would you allow that? That's what it seems like to me. There's got to be a big misunderstanding on my part, right? There's a big misunderstanding on my part there somewhere, and I'm not sure where it is, but it's something that puzzles me. A little frustrated this morning. My eyes are watering a little bit more than usual, and I feel a little more keyed in than usual. Like I think I'm more likely to make a trade than most days. I do think it could be a little tough because we got an ISM number coming, right? So probably I should sit on my hands, but we got a good trend there. That kind of behavior is the sort of thing that we've been looking for that we haven't been getting the past month or two. Okay. I am now getting from Al Jazeera TV, sirens sounded in Bahrain. Maybe we're going to see some action this morning. That must be why the treasuries turned back down so hard. So did we see a corresponding jump in oil? No, we did not. What do you think about universal tariff at 15%? Oh, yeah, this is a good question. Okay, so I think it's okay to have a tariff that's like across the board sort of a thing. But from my takeaway from this whole tariff thing is that tariffs are a niche tool that can be used to aid you in negotiations when you have the upper hand in the trade, when you're the one that's buying more from them. So tariffs overall, they hurt you. They do. But if you get a better deal out of it, it could be a positive thing. The whole issue with the regime that we've had, since basically since the Great Depression, is other countries put tariffs on us and we don't do anything. We don't negotiate it. We don't hit back. We just go, oh, we're going to keep the tariffs low because that would hurt industry over here in America, and hope that the other side does the right thing. And then they never do. Right? So I think that Trump coming in and playing hardball and saying, no, you've got to equalize this somehow, right? Was an effective tactic. It worked well. In fact, I feel like I would like to see changes to U.S. law to give the president more leverage in that situation, right? Question is, how do you balance it out so that Congress, it's still in Congress's hands, but the president has enough flexibility to impose tariffs to actually negotiate? Because right now, like, the EU is like, well, we can't negotiate under these situations. We're just not going to do anything. Okay? But a universal tariff of 15% is kind of like, that's not what you're using it for then at that point, are you? You're using it as an across-the-board tax. Now, I am also kind of wondering, I have not seen any data on this, okay? Is tariff a more effective means of taxation? It kind of seems to me that tariff hurts growth overall. So you don't want it. But in terms of like a taxation mechanism, it seems to generate a lot of revenue, and the damage done to the average person, I mean, there is definitely damage. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there was no damage, but it seems to be less than if you're just changing like payroll taxes. So it's kind of interesting how that has gone through that. Like, I don't really see a lot of people talking about, oh, the tariff is this huge tax on me and now I can't afford anything, sort of, like it's not a topic of discussion. So I do see some advantages maybe to the old tariff regime where you tax imports. I don't know. But here's the question that I have today, because I think it was on Monday. I mean, one of the other things that I'm seeing is, like, because we're not getting new headlines, you see the old headlines recycled. So, like, one of the headlines from Monday, I think, was that Spain did not allow the United States to use their airfields for the B-2 bombers to stop, forcing the bombers to like make multiple refuels and stay in the air the whole time, which kind of sucks for the pilots. And So Donald Trump has said, we're not going to do any trade with Spain. It was like, we're going to punish Spain. Wait, how do you do that? Like legally, how do you say we don't have any trade with Spain now? It must be hyperbole, right? I don't think that legally there is any facility that allows us to just completely halt all trade with another country, right? Trump could put on a tariff, say maybe make it about national security interests, and say there's a tariff of 1,000% on all goods coming from Spain. Maybe you could do that, but I don't think that you can just say like trade with Spain is illegal now. So that was kind of a curious interaction that I'm kind of like, wait, how do you do that? And I would expect all the liberals to be coming out and being like, no, you can't do that. But they're completely silent on it. They haven't said a thing. It's like the one thing that I'm like pretty sure, like, no, I don't think he knows what he's saying there. Everybody let him get away with it. I was okay, whatever. I get it. You're too busy defending the murderous regime in Iran to talk about trade. Okay. Oh, what's this? The Apple has announced a new MacBook Neo. What's that? I must know. Do I want this? Oh, okay. Oh, they accidentally leaked it on their website. That was 23 hours ago, so they must have announced it just now. The lower cost MacBook is rumored to feature an iPhone chip like the A18 Pro or A19 Pro rather than an M series chip, as well as a 12.9-inch display. It has also been rumored that this MacBook will come in fun color options, and the MacBook Neo name certainly sounds fun. Whoa. Is this like a Chromebook but Mac? The MacBook Neo would sit in a slot below the MacBook Air, but its starting price remains to be seen, with estimates ranging from $599 to $799. Their narrative storyteller didn't create a story yet. You know that I think you might be right. Like one of the things that I've definitely noticed, let's say amongst the liberal social media sphere, is that they're all just copying each other. Like very few of these people, when it comes to national and international headlines, very few of them are actually thinking for themselves, going like hearing the raw headline from the source and then figuring out what that means on their own and providing color or information about it. Somebody else has already done that for them, and they just repeat what that other person says. Like when I'm on TikTok and TikTok starts showing me something about a headline, and every person that comes through is basically sharing the same headline. I'm like, what's the point? It's the weirdest thing, actually, that people still do it. Because if you're on TikTok, who's going to watch your video? Like, I guess if you have an existing audience and you're getting that information out to your existing audience and they're not getting it from anywhere else, then sure, maybe that works. But, if I'm just, the way that most people see videos is the algorithm thinks they have interest in that subject and they show it to you. So then what happens is you end up getting the same story from like 20 creators. I get the headline from the first person, and then every other creator that's talking about it afterwards, I just scroll past them, right? Unless they're going to say something unique about it. What are they going to say that's unique? But especially in the liberal sphere, I don't get that. I don't see that. It's like they are given the top. They don't bring it up until they've been given the talking points from somebody else. Right? Which is the opposite of what you see in the right-wing sphere, where it's like the things that they're pulling out and like are choosing to talk about are like, where the hell did you get that from? Like they end up talking about like the most random things and going on these huge rants about it. Like the way that Candace Owens has been able to turn some of the most innocuous seeming headlines into these huge conspiracy theories for her audience is really like eye-opening to me. That whole thing has been crazy. Or like, oh, I guess so can I tell you something else? What's this freaking guy's name that has become popular since Charlie Kirk died? Although I wouldn't necessarily say he's popular, but he's gained notoriety, let's say. Candace has been a sleeper cell this entire time. I do wonder. I don't think that she's a sleeper cell. I think that she just always cared about the money. I think that she cared so much about the money that it's deluded her. Right? Like, I think that she genuinely thinks that what she's doing is right. But the problem is that her brain is not able to differentiate between, like, I say this thing and it wasn't true, but I got rewarded for it. I don't think she's that sophisticated. I think that the conspiracy theory stuff keeps rewarding her, and so she keeps leaning into it, and it's like this self-reinforcing cycle that she's not consciously aware of. Right? But no, who did I want to talk about? Nick Fuentes. I genuinely believe at this point that Nick Fuentes is a plant. Like, I think that somebody on the left was like, okay, who on is like far right and is just palpable. Like, we can't pick somebody that's outright racist or anything. We'll pick somebody that toes the line just enough. But who is that right-wing influencer that I really want to become more prominent to poison the Republican Party? Oh, I know. Nick Fuentes. So then all of a sudden, you're getting the people pushing this Nick Fuentes. Nobody likes this guy. Nobody on the right listens to that. I don't know anybody on the right that likes Nick Fuentes. All I ever hear from anybody on any of the right-wing forums, including like the really far right-wing forums, like Patriots.win and stuff like that, they all hate the guy. They make jokes about him like Groypers and he's a virgin and all this kind of shit. And all of a sudden, I'm hearing so much stuff about him everywhere. What? And then surprise, surprise, next thing you know, hey, don't vote next election. Because I don't like what Donald Trump did in Iran, don't vote next election. Okay. He's got to be a plant, man. Like, maybe he's not aware. Maybe he's not in on it. But I genuinely think that, like, the left and certain media outlets and influencers were, like, intentionally pushing him to hurt the Republican Party, thinking that people will go along with it. And I don't really think that anybody is. Like Nick Fuentes says, don't vote. And I'm still just laughing at him. I think it's a big joke. It's funny because you don't need to poison the Republican Party. They sink themselves just fine. Well, that's a different issue, right? You gotta realize that. Why does the Republican Party, when it comes down to certain votes, for instance, like, why can't we get the SAVE Act passed? It's really, really close, but it can't get across the line. That's because of just the way that the system works, right? With the way that this system works, whoever is on the line, whoever is that person that occasionally crosses over or is no when the rest of his party is yes has a lot of power. It really enhances their profile and brings more opportunities to them. And so they kind of have an incentive to stop things, any kind of real legislation. And then on top of that, I think that there are a lot of Republicans that benefit from the way that voting is right now. And if we put more security measures on voting, you do have to admit, like, listen, I think that Democrats do have a point when it comes to voting. Like, I am concerned about possible fraud, but when you implement fraud measures, there's probably there's going to be a certain number of other people that don't vote. Not because they're not capable of doing it or anything, but like people are lazy. Even if you're registered and everything, it's hard to get people out to vote, especially if it's not a presidential election, right? So laws like that do change turnout, even for people that were voting legally. So they do have a point there, right? So if you're a Republican, particularly a moderate Republican, that was benefiting from the turnout being as high as possible, you're not going to like a law like that, right? So the system kind of stops those sorts of things. That's for the Republicans. But we're talking more about like an ideological poisoning of the Republican Party. Somebody trying to make the Republican Party more racist. But it seems to me like it's not working. We'll say this, though, we're rounding the final corner of the our greatest ally line. Support for Israel is plummeting in our politics? Well, if you were to look at polling and you were to look at like overall support for Israel, I bet you probably would see a decline in it, wouldn't you? It probably hasn't crossed the line where it matters. But here's the thing on Israel. Just hear me out for a second. Okay. Do I need to talk about like where this schism comes from first? Let's shelve that for a second. Here's the thing with Israel. Okay. Israel has had threats from Gaza. Israel has had threats from Iran. A lot of those threats to Israel around them are really like Iran-backed proxies. So if there really is true regime change in Iran and a government that is friendly to the West or at least not antagonistic, with Iran gone, I mean, isn't that pretty much 99% of Israel's problem? The problem should be gone at that point. So all of the things that everybody complains about should be gone. I don't know. Am I wrong? I mean, I as I'm saying it, I'm kind of sitting here thinking, well, surely it's not that easy. It's not going to turn out that way, right? But theoretically, Israel and its problems shouldn't be a big problem anymore after that. So then, well, maybe support for Israel would go up, but it wouldn't matter what support for Israel is anymore. Yeah? But at what cost? Ugh. Here's the thing, man. Like really think about it. This thing with Iran has been going on for like 60 years now, right? It was like the 60s, right? It's been like 60 years that Iran has been pulling this shit. Yeah, we have a one-time cost of a war. There's gonna be debt. It's gonna suck. But like, how much other pain did we experience through that whole 60 years? Like, what was the total cost of all of that? And what would be the total cost of that continuing, especially if Iran had a bomb? Because we know now that they had enough nuclear material to make 11 bombs. They didn't have the technology to make the bomb, but they had more than enough uranium. You know? Turkey has no chill. They will be just noisy. Yeah, well, because if you really look at what Donald Trump is trying to do, I don't know if this is actually the way this is going to turn out, but it seems to me that what Donald Trump is trying to do is he's trying to resolve all of the geopolitical issues that have been festering basically his entire life so that we can put all of our focus onto China. That's what he's doing. So in that theoretical future, unless it has to do with China, it's not really relevant, right? So that means that our attention will be turned to countries like Japan, Taiwan, India, all of the countries around China that have interactions with China and all of that sort of thing. And we'll forget about Israel. It'll be relative peace in Israel, supposedly. I don't know. Because here's, so let's go back. I really think there's two places that the anti-Israel sentiment comes from. Okay. The first one is the left's wokeness. Okay. The wokeness was basically a lot of that theory and everything came about as a way to think about ways to help the Palestinian people, really. Is that the Palestinians are oppressed and we need to do something to prop them up. So really was what it was about. Again, like I was saying yesterday, wokeness came from Occupy Wall Street. That's what popularized it. From the very beginning, they were talking about that stuff. And one of the reasons they were talking about that stuff at the time was because there was all of this stuff going on with the West Bank and Gaza and the occupation of Gaza and leaving and all that. Okay. So it's just as much of an issue, and probably more of an issue back then than it is now, actually. Anyways, so they've kind of got that going, right? So this whole thing about colonialism and like, why do you care now? It's because of Palestine. Okay. On the right, it's a different thing. On the right, I really think it is that the right is more aware of people's tendency to support people like them. Like, you talk about it like a race, or it's a racism issue, but really it's more than that, because people are smart enough to realize that while it's not necessarily about how they look, but they're not in my tribe, right? We understand what is our tribe and what is not. And in past conflict, the people that were not in your tribe that you were in conflict with very often looked a lot like you. Like, especially you're talking like Stone Age times, right? Like it would be just like another family on the other side of the valley that maybe you're semi-related to, right? But you're fighting over resources. So, right? And the thing is, the left has this dream. You know, what was that song that John Lennon wrote where he's like, imagine all the people, blah, 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 right? Like the whole song is, what if all of the differences that people had in the world were gone and everybody was just completely united? Never going to happen. Probably a bad thing. Why is that? Because different people have different needs, incentives, etc. And sometimes two people need the same thing. Two people need the same resource, and there's only so much of that resource. What's going to happen? There's going to be conflict. That's just nature, folks. And it will always be that way. The idea that we get everybody doing the same thing, to me, is so preposterous. Like, just when you look at climate, okay, like the needs of a country that is very, very snowy is different from the needs of a country that lives in the tropics. And there are all sorts of really interesting things about, like, what those countries tend to be like, what those cultures tend to be like, even down to things as innocuous as, like, how spicy their food is, that we find come up over and over and over again just based on the climate. So you're never going to have this, like, this unified world government thing. It's ridiculous. You need different systems that are acclimated to where they live. And yes, sometimes the needs of different groups will conflict with each other, right? So on the right, what you got is you got these people that are saying, well, everybody else is kind of thinking about their tribe and what's good for them, and how come we're not allowed to think about what's good for my tribe, right? And one of the things that really clue into is, well, Jews are not necessarily in my tribe. Like, they look white, but they have their own ethnicity. They really are. They have their own history, culture, etc., etc., etc. And yes, that also means that they have their own needs and so forth. Now, the thing is I think that the needs of the American tribe and the needs of Israelis, right? Because there are, I wouldn't say it's a Jewish tribe necessarily, because there's Jews that are 100% American and 100% red-blooded Americans, totally with the United States on everything. Okay, it's there. Okay, but people are going to notice they are a different tribe. I think that the needs of those two tribes are aligned, right? But these people, they can't get over the fact that it's like, but it's a different tribe. Like, here's the thing. Why is it every other country in the world is allowed to do the things that are in the best interests of their citizens, but Israel isn't? Anytime Israel does something that's in their best interests, then everybody flips out. I'm telling you. And I wouldn't even call it racism as much as it is like sectarianism or something like that, you know? I really think that that's where it comes from. And, you know, so yeah, we spent a lot of money. There's been a lot of wars, et cetera, and everybody blames Israel. But, like, what do you want to have happen? Number one, should it be that Israel just got wiped off of the map? Because I really think when you kind of take some of these things to their conclusion and you do the things, you know, like these people, they think that the U.S. Is controlled by Israel, yada, yada, yada. Well, okay, let's just say that maybe that's true. If you change that, what would be the end result? There wouldn't be an Israel. There wouldn't be an Israel. And I think that the reason people key in on this one thing is that we have this idea that war is evil. War is an evil, bad thing that should be prevented at all costs and ideally would never happen ever. And because we've been in wars, that's a bad thing. And why have we been in wars? It's because of Israel. That's the logic. I don't feel that way. I think that war is an inescapable and even necessary part of the world as it is right now. Maybe someday God will come and reign on the earth and there won't be war anymore. Okay. But under the state that the world is in right now, it's an inescapable consequence of the world that we live in. You say we shouldn't have war ever, like the industrial military complex is a huge problem. We need to defeat it. You do that, you defeat it. Maybe there's going to be like 20 years of peace, and then somebody else is going to come along and kick your ass. That's what's going to happen. It's inescapable. Better to just be strong. And look, it's inescapable that our history, like human history, is war. A lot of the things, the innovations, everything about us has been shaped by war. So I think it's kind of silly to think that we're just going to get rid of it, right? So that's why I'm kind of partial to the way that Donald Trump is thinking about it. Okay, there's been all of these problems that are like the wars of the last 100 years that we kind of need to tie up now because we need to start fighting the next war. I think he's right. I think that conflict with China could be a big problem. And, you know, it's not even going to be like ballistic war, right? But make no doubt about it, we're at war with China. We are at economic and ideological war with China. We really are. And I do think that some, like Iran in particular, is a really big distraction and thorn in the side of us focusing on the thing that probably matters more in the next century, which is China. And then on top of that, we really could not allow Iran to have a nuclear bomb. If Iran had a nuclear bomb, that would have been so bad. That would have been so bad. Can two tribes be friends if they have a common enemy? Well, yeah. I mean, in an ideal world, there's still going to be tribes, but you know, I am the more open person. I want to be on the edge between where the two tribes meet and to be making a profit from the interactions of these two tribes. That's us as traders, as the merchant class. That's the way that we should be thinking, is I want to understand other people. I enjoy other cultures, right? This is part of why I'm saying that like it's not racism to say that people are tribalistic and that different tribes have competing needs and they will conflict sometimes, right? Because it's not like I think one group of people is inherently superior to the other group of people, and we want this group of people to survive and these ones to die out, or I want to treat this group of people badly or anything like that. No, it's I want to make money from the interactions. We want to be friends, but it's still another tribe, and you're fooling yourself if you kind of tell yourself that like the tribe's just going to go away. It's at the root of human nature. China would like Iran to have nukes, maybe. You kind of have to wonder though, with the way that this has been going. So somebody pointed out something to me yesterday that I was like, oh yes, of course. Which is that Iran has been supported by Russia and China. That's their ally. And the ally, or the country that gets hurt the most from closing down the Strait of Hormuz is China, not the United States. The United States, in some respects, at least the United States government. I mean, don't get me wrong. The price of oil going up is a huge problem for the Trump administration in terms of the next election. Okay, if we were past the midterms, maybe he wouldn't care. Or if it was earlier, maybe he wouldn't care. But, you know, if the price of oil goes up and it leads to a recession this year, that's really going to hurt Trump's chances, right? But in terms of currency and the things that are like relevant to war, price of oil going up is good for the United States because the United States is the largest oil exporter in the world. So if you're Iran, why do you increase the price of oil? It's not to hurt the United States and try and help yourselves in the conflict. It's to hurt China and try and force China to get involved. Interesting. Iran is attacking Maltese cargo ships now, you're saying. Is that the same headline that we were getting, though? Anyways, I said a similar thing under a different context yesterday. Damned if we do, damned if we don't. It's always America's fault. Well, yeah, because ultimately in any system, there are things about this system that are undesirable. I have a theory on this because I am a religious person, right? And many Mormon beliefs about the afterlife, I guess, are different from other people's beliefs about the afterlife. But let's just ask ourselves, if we just kind of look at it from a Christian context, you know, what is heaven like, right? And many people have this conception of heaven that heaven is stateless, which is, I think is kind of funny. I don't think so. I think that that heaven is still governed by the laws of the universe, like physics and things like that. I think that there are still systems in heaven. And you might think, well, then maybe heaven has systems similar to the systems that we have here on Earth, but they're just perfect. Everything works always perfectly. Policymakers always make the correct decision, and everybody's always happy all the time, sort of a thing. But based on what I know about the universe, I don't think that works. I don't think that you can go and make a system that is absolutely airtight perfect. There's always going to be some mathematical consequence of the way that you have your system set up that is undesirable. And the solution there is not that you can make a perfect system, but that we give ourselves the flexibility to just come in and fix the problem when it arises. It's your only choice. So people want perfection. You're never going to get it. There's always going to be that undesirable thing. But try getting the rest of the world to understand that, right? Are we getting another headline here? Okay. So there was a story going around this morning that Iran reached out to the CIA for talks. Which I thought was kind of an odd story, but that was what the New York Times published, I think, right? And the headline that just came out over the news squawk was that Iran denies that they reached out for talks. So treasury is sold down there.
Block buy.
Oil is spiking back up again. Okay, so let me go back to something there, because we were talking about Israel, right? So Uzi said, because when we have to pursue our interests, we have to pay for it, and when they want to pursue their interests, we still have to pay for it. Well, okay, make no doubt about it. Israel has paid the price, okay? Like, more people in Israel have died than Americans have died. They pay taxes in Israel too. They spend a lot of money on it too. I think it's kind of silly to suggest that, like, the United States is bearing all of the pain to do what Israel wants and yada yada yada. I really think that ultimately the United States interests and Israel's interests are the same. If we had said, no, we're not going to help the Israelis, and like the wars and everything that basically created the state of Israel, the United States is responsible for the state of Israel. Okay, like if we hadn't given them the money and everything to arm themselves, they would have lost those wars. Okay, so if we went back in time and we never gave them that money, then the Jews in Israel would have been genocided, and Jerusalem and that whole land would be 100% Muslim right now, right? And guess what? Iran would still be around. Iran would still be trying to get a nuclear missile, and we would probably still be doing intervention with them. Because with North Korea, it's like, well, I think that North Korea can have a bomb and they'll just continue to be a poor communist regime that doesn't do anything. But not Iran. If Iran had a bomb, they would start causing trouble. They would. So it is in our best interest. We'd be doing it either way, even if Israel didn't exist. See, all this proves how much Iran definitely wouldn't have used any nuclear weapons. They definitely don't attack everyone in sight, possibly even out. I know, right? Like the reaction from Iran has really just been lash out at everything in the region. It's pretty wild. Because some of the things that they've done, I kind of wonder, is that really helping you? Heaven has a filter. If it's the essential part, without a filter, heaven won't exist. The more filter you would push, the more it'll be like heaven for those who were filtered in and those were filtered. Yeah, but you still have to have things like, how do you handle interactions between people? And you're going to have certain, we have certain rules about how you interact with people. Like when you meet somebody, you shake their hand. Do you think that in heaven, when you meet somebody, you won't shake their hand? I bet you probably will shake their hand, right? Or like, let's take it like a step further. In heaven, do you play baseball? Do you play baseball in heaven? And if you do, like, how does that work? Everybody has a resurrected body. Does everybody have the same ability in baseball? Or are some people better than others at baseball? This is a really, really bizarre question in Mormonism because Mormons think that you will be resurrected with a perfect body and that you'll be perfect. So if everybody's perfect, then shouldn't everybody be equally as good at baseball? But I still think that there are some, from what I understand of the math, there are quantities of infinity that are larger than other quantities of infinity, right? So you will play baseball, and every once in a while there are certain situations that you just can't create a system to perfectly deal with, and we look at the situation there and we decide what the right thing is to happen. And you bend the rules sometimes, and you make exceptions, and all of this sort of stuff. The philosophical question of our time. It's really kind of more when you really dive into it, because it's related to this other deeper theological. So I think that most philosophy often comes down to this question of, like, do we actually have agency? Like, is everything in our universe deterministic or not? I don't think that it's deterministic, which says to me, like, there's some amount of randomness to it. That randomness is inherent to reality. That, like, on a quantum level, there's not something that just, it guarantees that it's always going to turn out a certain way. There's some of those particles, it's perfectly random, and you can't predict it, even if you have all knowledge, because that thing hasn't been decided yet. And so, if that's true, then, Christianity is true and there is a heaven, then heaven would have to be able to deal with the chaotic nature of the universe. I feel like that slightly treats humans like robots too, as if this analogy removes all the notions of individual and humanity. We're all just machines to play ball, and every single individual, though a person idea, everything would be what the, yeah. The traditional person's conception of perfection doesn't allow for any individual expressions. Wow. And you'd think that this is something that's like not, why would you talk about that? But it is kind of relevant to trading. I don't know like what the takeaway is, but if chaos is at the very nature of the universe, then that kind of tells you some things about trading, right? It's not already determined. Like some people have this idea that what the markets are going to do is already determined. It's just too complex for us to predict, and it's always going to play out the same way. But I don't think that that's the case. I think that there's randomness to it. I think that there are some points where you can kind of make predictions, but you can only make so long of a prediction because there's randomness that you will never be able to predict. Even as much as like if you so here's another belief that I have that kind of highlights that I think that chaos is inherent to nature. If you invented a time machine and you went back and replayed the day, and you also invented technology that basically makes you like invisible, like you go back in time to observe time, but you are not interacting with it at all. So that there's absolutely nothing about your presence or you going back in time that can possibly affect the timeline. I think that if you go back in time, the timeline would still change because there are those things that are happening like at the very fundamental levels of matter that would turn out differently by the nature of chaos, of randomness. And so there would be slight differences in the timeline every time that you went back. So you come in the markets, right? Like what you do matters. Like it's not decided. We are deciding it moment by moment with the transactions that we make. So this is kind of the philosophy at the heart, but the philosophy it wasn't like I came up with the philosophy and then I went out and I built the world around it. I think that the philosophy is just kind of the inescapable conclusion based on everything else that I know about complexity and chaos and so forth. That like it's at the heart of pretty much all of the major problems that we're looking at in the world. The natural conclusion is that there is randomness baked into reality at some fundamental level. I always only short when the moon is full. Well, the moon is full pretty full right now. We're kind of on the waning phase of it, but I woke up this morning and I saw how full the moon was, and I was like, oh, maybe I wonder if that has anything to do with why we're attacking Ran right now. Oh, what's this headline Probucks is posting? How long ago did that one come through? 'Cause I didn't see that one. 3:39 a.m. So that was a long time. That was a couple of hours ago. U.S. military has reportedly begun moving 100,000 troops to Cyprus. Ooh. Okay, so there were stories yesterday suggesting that, the U.S., there could be boots on the ground. There was, I don't know how reliable this particular report is, especially since we haven't really seen a whole lot. That sounds like something pretty significant that you'd see a lot more discussion about, right? But yesterday, members of Congress were briefed, And a lot of these members of Congress sounded really upset when they came back out, Democrats in particular. They were like, well, we don't think that there's anything about this that really needs to be secret, and we think that the whole public should, because they think that, like, the public would be upset if they knew. Yes, they first talked about putting the Kurdish. I wonder about the Kurds, though, because if the Kurds are involved successfully bringing down the Iranian regime, then at that point it really becomes difficult to not give them Kurdistan, right? Like, how do you work that one out? We need a map. What am I talking about? There is this area that's basically, as I understand it, like this. Called Kurdistan, and all of the people there are Kurds, and they have their own government with like their own president and elections and things like that, but they're not actually the recognized governments. And because it's land owned by Turkey, Iraq, and Iran. And so if the Kurds are the ones that really truly own, or I mean really truly like defeat the Iranian regime, how are you not going to let them have their Kurdistan? And even if Kurdistan is just only this section of Iran, like Turkey will not allow that. Turkey, for whatever reason, is like really concerned about the Kurds. Actually, maybe it's even bigger than that, because it might involve parts of Armenia too. Anyways, this is just this really, really complex and bizarre issue that I kind of wonder about. But, like, here's the thing. Are we saying that the United States planned out strikes on Iran and killed all of Iran's leaders and all of that sort of a thing? And then only now, after they've done that, did they go and say, well, maybe we should start arming the Kurds? Or, you know, like that sounds kind of, that doesn't make sense. I mean, I guess if you really believe that the Trump administration is truly incompetent, then maybe it makes sense. But I have a hard time seeing that one, that like they attacked. Did they think, oh, we'll do the airstrikes and then the regime will just collapse? Maybe that's what they thought. But yeah, but probably there were plans there from the beginning, and it's just only now that they are revealing it to us. And then the question would be, why are they telling us about it now? Kurdistan has parts of Syria? Really? Okay. So it's more like we need like a blue. It's more like, oh, we need a bigger. It's something like this. Are Kurds? That's a good question. I don't think that they are. Let's ask ChatGPT. Most Kurds are Muslim, but not all, and the majority are Sunni Islam. Okay, so that's an important thing to note, because the Sunnis are the more radical, right? Or no, wait, no. It's the Shias that are the more radical. I can't forget. The Shia Crescent. Their seeding methodologies to not reveal their main objectives. I think one of the things that you know, I really think in terms of like media, like think of Dune and Lord of the Rings, and the author of the Lord of the Rings didn't like Dune. It makes sense to me because like the Lord of the Rings is kind of like, okay, I've been to hell and here's what I think, and here's how to be better people, and here's what we should aspire to be, right? And Dune is kind of more like, okay, now we've seen what the post-World War II world looks like, and this is what it's really like. And Dune has insights about the way that the world and the way that power works that are incredibly insightful and that people don't seem to understand, even when they have media like Dune screaming it in their face, right? What do they do in Dune? They don't just come in and do political maneuvers and things like that. They build systems. They build systems, and including systems ingrained into the culture of other societies to help them when they need it. And it seems like so crazy, and like, how do you think through? But that's exactly what we do. That's exactly what we do. Why was I talking about Dune all of a sudden? Dang. Are you still starting a stream 8:30? Yeah, so we start it every day at 8:30 Eastern time. And sometimes we go to 10 o'clock Eastern time. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, we want to be able to stream until 11. But a lot of the time, I get to Thursday and there's something going on, and I want to go into work anyways, which has been the case this week. They had a meeting on Tuesday that I wanted to go in for, and then they moved the meeting. So, whatever. Be in on Thursday, too. I had totally forgotten about it, too. That I'm supposed to stay home on Tuesday and Thursday. It'll take me a while to get that ingrained into my schedule. Oh, yeah, what was that comment? Their seeding methodologies not reveal their main objectives. Yeah. And they're going to, if troops are going to be involved, they kind of have to, like, reveal it slowly and show how things are going so that the public will support it and you can justify it and all these things. And that's what I was talking about doing. So we got about 3.5 minutes before the ISM number, which is going to be pretty important. Okay? I would bet you that the treasuries will probably jump to the extremes. Just given what the manufacturing PMI was, I'm going to guess that the services PMI is going to be surprising enough that it's going to move. It might be something like we move down to 27 and bounce, but I think we're probably going to move. And we want to be cautious here about the prices paid. Previous reading of 66.6 and an estimate of 68.3. The manufacturing services prices paid number was much higher than expected. And if I recall correctly, this services prices paid number from last month was much higher than it was expected. So that's the one that there's a greater probability of it outperforming that could really hurt the treasuries. And it's probably going to be in the direction of selling the treasuries. So people are probably going to be hedged short going into it. You can see, by the way, the liquidity in the treasuries is pretty low at the moment. So this is going to be like how do we, this is going to be like an epic or legendary level event. It's not as high as non-farms, but usually they don't pull until a minute before. So when you're starting to see that amount of pulling this early, that's pretty significant. It's actually, I'm not going to be taking any trades. In fact, to not tempt myself, disarm this Dom over here. I'm not going to take any trades, but it's making me feel nervous. Seeing that pulling that early is making me feel nervous. How do you spell Erie? It is E-E-R-I-E. Now I want to write that. Now I want to write that. E. Oh man, I've already screwed up. E. E. R. I. E. Huh. Calculating gamma exposure for options for instruments I tried before trading day. I'm really, you know, I've never really gotten into like how do they calculate that? Because it seems like it would become like, hey, what do you know? They sold. Okay, so services price is paid not as high as expected, 63.0 versus a 68.3. But the headline was 56.1 versus expected 53.5. So I would actually say that sell was larger than I would have expected based on the news, but the liquidity pull was so much larger. So it's all good. But I think we can move from here. I think you kind of put that event down as like a I don't look at that and go, okay, we moved down and now we're going to continue trending down. I don't know if that what we got on that number is significant enough to really cause major flows. Probably we go back to focusing more on Iran. At the moment, oil is coming back down. So oil coming back down, maybe the treasuries could rally. But overall, the treasuries have been a sell. So I think we could kind of like watch and see what the trend in the order flow is. But I have to go, unfortunately. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Be careful. Does look like we're going to normalize. Like, I bet you that we're probably going to normalize back out and it's a non-event. You know, it's a quick down and then we come back to where we were and then everything else after that ignores that it happened. Which if you want to trade the geopolitical uncertainty is good for you, right? But I digress. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks. Well, thank you so much. I tell you what, this whole thing, like trading is hard. Trading is a lot of work. And if I didn't have a whole community behind me, helping me, encouraging me, here to talk every day and actually be a community. So it's really hard to get a good community going in the trading space, but we've been around for a long time now. And if it wasn't, I don't know how I would have been able to persist. But you've been there every step, and I think that we can continue to do this till the day I die. So I'm very, very grateful for that opportunity. Thank you guys so much. See you tomorrow. Stay excellent.